Jamgön Kongtrül Lodrö Thaye Dene tashin sajü tarzın yönden lözo jase tuyu Chunchai chudong chunyi jente Dalu mensen jambe yong lan du Zedene jeje chenra özre je Dalu demu membara srene Kadang den jue yong loi do wa ye Lo zhe pop nong wa zao do so Nam la zu zheng ser je sa ye ten Ten zhen pa me zhe ling kai wen zhe Xerab nye den nong we che gun sarai Tum zhen zho we la ma sha ge yoro Jamya shana lu je jin re ze Sa yin yin bo dewa nang par sir Nam gen yin bo shang bai gun do zong Ye we se jin je la yin gu sha cha Rikam sa ben min zhu dam be su Rem yin lam je gu yin zhe bu tere De yin gu yin zhe bu ter ze be Yong zhen lam ma ju par je la du Lasso tene number so samba shongjib chodu tuje barambache saltamne senrunam.
So please listen to the explanations having generated the body mind.
Ta nganzo latung kaptede tela sabje ngayo benang ne laktung gambe juk gamna te laktung jule kare gogu yobate kasang wote shu charoche ta laktung gambe kabla gambe namba tille cheparmenda kare yoba tering ti yewate thoma shuye yin
Now the section which sets forth Vipassana meditation has 5 principal subdivisions. During the previous teaching, we went through the first of the 5, and that subdivision lists the prerequisites for Vipassana. Today, we'll continue with the second of the 5 divisions, which lists the particular types of Vipassana meditation.
Itikia yundu dongbo jikdin be laktung singeta jikdin len debe laktung singejige yewa yi song budu.
So to begin with, there are 2 basic types in terms of Vipassana practice. Worldly Vipassana practice and other worldly Vipassana practice.
Dan jikdin be laktung singende zo shirupage gamguyore.
And the first of the 2 is primarily
Shirupage. Nangba mayimba.
The first of these 2 is practice in various non-Buddhist systems.
Number 2, dig gongbashi gore. Laktung sechan zongde chikdoni gitawala nyambar jaya rawachila kona ti chapiyo mare.
Now, it's important to know these details because when you read various publications, for example, or attend various lectures, it's important not to jump to the conclusion that what is explained in the context of emptiness as set forth in the Buddhist tradition. You have other types of vipassana practice, primarily then in non-Buddhist systems or traditions.
Perna Jagarav Chashana Hindu ke Lobantanzo Katuina Vipassana Shedegdwa.
Rikpa?
Vipassana.
Vipassana.
Vipassana Shedegi or the Tedu Nangbe Sheju, don't start to get a shaggy.
Now, if we look at India and its many traditions, there is religious traditions or spiritual traditions, however one wants to phrase it. There is the Hindu tradition, and here many masters set forth so-called vipassana meditation. But that type of vipassana meditation or practice doesn't have anything to do with emptiness as set forth in Buddhism. So when one attends lectures, it's important that one informs oneself as to what type of vipassana practice is explained.
Di Gilatong Ganton Te Rang Le Yembe Klai Kompon Dubiceto Laton de Gambiot.
And the purpose of vipassana meditation in the various Hindu traditions is to come in contact with, as it were, the various gods of the Hindu pantheon. And there, the so-called God or superior being is seen as existing in separation from the practicing individual.
Tam Tinzoge Naranzo Min Jidinge Semkin Trotang de Rakpa Tene Tungal Mumbo Cheba Ravachil de Lain Jidinge Ne Tenzo Shive Nabachindo de Di Shive Compunte Drubechedo Tene Semte Shivar Netap Chigiorwa.
So there, the purpose of the vipassana practice is the following, or the practice is based in the following idea, as it were, namely, here the practitioner who lives in our world as a member of humanity on this planet will face numerous difficult situations of suffering and the like. And in terms of the human race on our planet, there is a high level of suffering for many, which makes them look for an escape, as it were. And in the Hindu traditions, the purpose of the practice is to attain rebirth in a godlike realm, a more pure realm than our level of existence, that of humanity, where the kind of suffering we're exposed to here doesn't happen simply. These levels of existence involve a peaceful way of life, as it were. Very often, these levels of existence that a Hindu practitioner strives to take rebirth in are about so-called stable meditation states, where the mind rests in a calm and peaceful state. So, in the various Hindu traditions, Vipassana practice there takes the goal of obtaining such a rebirth for the sake of escaping the suffering that is experienced in our existence, the world of human beings.
Zinada penna nganso mi jikting ke sam tang de rakpa yimpatang sem mahyo yimpar shepe lag sharap ji yor watel
mi jikten de rakpa yimpa sen chirurgi jikten de pena rakpa yimpa
no ngarang gin nam to gun rotan
nam to gi rotan de rakpa re
nam to gun rotan de rakpa re teleten chirurgin jikten de
me de sung songa rakpa tang sem gi rotan de ma chi ba
ngal hab chukta penna rakpa tang segindo namto rakpa chi ma to nganso korea mi do namto
no paris na nganso de Jamgön Mangpo dro sarve shugo digi drebo ma to tongi minro ga
jina
chava denso
ya
di kogo
okay listen me
di kogo ge re na
dile kogo re tende ge namto rakpa te ge yulyan rakpa chi la ma to ta tu gyo marwa
ya
tene taga na
yul koran rakpa de yulgi tseni rakpa ma to tongi minro
tseni rakpa ma to tongi yo mare taga na shinge dile tenne tene sem peda tu gdo wa tende ge ne su te sharab ge thum ne dile hakpe sem hiwa shi drop gdo wa tene.
So as to a short description here of this type of practice, what is at hand is the following. One considers the world of human beings and the fact that the worldly mindset of a human being functions in a very coarse and perturbed manner. If one considers the mental processes of or in the mind of a regular human being, what is at hand is that the human being is aware just of the very end product of the mental process in his mind. Because of the human being's level of ignorance, the human being fails to see what caused the final thought that surfaces in his mind. And because of that situation, in terms of how the regular human being perceives the objects that the mind interacts with, because of this coarse perspective, where the human being fails to see the entire process, the human being only sees the end result of it, that influences the mind to the extent where the human being is also only able to know the most obvious or coarse characteristics of any object. So a regular human being's mind functions in this way, which then, to sum up, means that he, the human being, is only aware of the thoughts that surface in his mind. He's completely unaware of the mental processes that happened in his mind, the processes that caused the thought to surface. And he's only able to see an object in the light of that thought, not in the light of the entire process. Therefore, a regular human being's perception, I suppose one could say, is a rather handicapped one, a rather dysfunctional one. However, the human being is not aware of this. Now, the human being, Tanda de Hindu Girva, is made aware of this flow of his by way of the various Hindu masters that he may have become a disciple of, and the teachings of the Hindu tradition, by way of which a greater extent of knowledge of the entire mental process and the nature of the objects perceived by knowledge is acquired, and that makes the disciple realize that there is actually a better way of relating to one's mindset and the objects of the mindset, which would make for a more calm and peaceful mindset, thus allowing the individual to go from states of more or less constant perturbation and suffering to a mindset that is more calm and collected, and therefore does not cause the individual such suffering. And so that's how so-called higher knowledge works in the Hindu system. That's the purpose of higher knowledge in the Hindu system, to see this, the difference between the regular worldly mindset and a more refined mindset.
Penanti peshuina ngaranso chetame tan samatan tan jirteda deyen sinken de gechambu yimbachi debe yuen sinken de gechambu ji yembar thunne telang ambar shin densu tandala chupa ja chong ja tan ngokor tan
chupa ja tene
chupa ja deyen tobe chedo chong ja ngokor tan tanga le to bundo.
Now consider a regular human being who doesn't have any understanding of his mindset. The human being is driven by his desire for possessing desirable sense objects, as it were. And in order to achieve this, to have what he desires to have, the regular human being will involve himself in all sorts of negative situations that cause him suffering. For the sake of getting what he wants, he may end up in a long-term conflict with another person. And he will, because of being driven by attachment for whatever he desires, he will bring that conflict, even though long-term, to its conclusion, hopefully in his favor, in order to get what he wants. It can be any type of dispute with another person, and he will work very hard to get there, to win the conflict so that he can get what he wants. Some people engage in various financial enterprises for the sake of enhancing their financial wealth. And in order to do just that, they are prepared, regular human beings are prepared to cheat others, to fool others, to engage in all sorts of non-virtuous actions in order to enhance their private level of finance. Now, all of this will in the end cause that regular human being nothing but suffering. He doesn't really, by way of acting in this manner, obtain happiness, which is the ultimate goal of all of what he's doing. So it's sort of a self-defeatist approach in terms of wanting happiness. But this is what regular human beings in the world do. In the mistaken belief that if I get what I have set out to get, then I will have a situation of peace and prosperity. Very often that's not at all the result of all the non-virtuous actions one commits in order to get what one wants.
Jesa nanjor patige tindre kende
Hindu gi nanjor pa.
Hindu ki nanjor pa tan jiktin be nanjor patige.
Ore da Hindu yin. Now in the world there are many traditions like the Hindu tradition, traditions other than of the Hindu school, that teach the same, namely how to improve the worldly mindset so that a mindset of peace and prosperity, as it were, can be achieved. And that's what Vipassana is about in the non-Buddhist traditions of it.
Ta tendes nanjor patige doyong ki shemba se ta denzo tartu kindrebu dungar ji ma to meba thum ne.
So these practitioners, through being educated by their spiritual masters, come to see that acting in a worldly manner as to obtaining happiness, peace, and prosperity brings nothing but suffering.
대인도 때네 칸난 거네 디테되게 칸난 거는 semran 대 라테네 땡땡은 진다면 감기요.
And they are taught various types of samadhi, various types of stable meditation states that are about turning inwardly in order to make for a state of change as to the workings of the worldly mindset. And because of the various methods, the practitioner achieves suppressing manifest afflictive obscuring states. That is to say, negative states of mind that make for perturbation, suffering, and so on. And the mindset where afflictive obscuring states are suppressed to the point where they no longer manifest in terms of the practitioner having achieved the ability, by way of this meditation, this type of vipassana, to suppress those states. What is achieved is a calm and peaceful state of mind. Of course, if anger didn't fully manifest, if desire did not fully manifest, the mindset would be at peace. That's quite obvious. And that's a virtuous mindset, because the individual who achieves this, the capacity to rest in this calm, peaceful mindset, will not engage in non-virtuous actions. And therefore, this person will not accumulate karma in the context of non-virtue, but in the context of virtue, which will further assist that practitioner in his efforts to calm the worldly mindset. And in terms of the next lifetime, now within a world system, we are now looking at the world of human beings. Now there are higher levels of existence with godlike circumstances, and the human practitioners who are able to achieve this peaceful mindset, as was described in brief, or that was described in brief, will, in their next rebirth, be born in one of these higher levels, where that mindset continues. And depending upon the level of calm as to the mindset achieved, there are many different levels of existence, and the higher, the longer the lifespan in those godlike existences. And the higher the degree of calm. So the higher the state, the longer the lifespan, and the higher the degree of calm.
Level chik ba chik chang yin na yang.
Level chik pa chik chang, you know?
Chik ba chik chang pen na turshi tan ra ba level chik ra ba.
Uh-huh.
Ti na le che bin jik sem chen le cha sha na yang.
Uh-huh.
Chen de la nge nang be chu lo jong khang la khang sam chi che. Yin phen ge sha wa do ze do yin na yang. Nga le tingin zing de jik den be tingin zing ba to me na. Then I to see that che Jawasham back called Jet over Sigdoa. Oh, yeah.
Det Tushita de la Datesen i Jöparise går.
Yeah. That
Tenne Datesen chick nangla da de tinges in de Khenpa.
yeah.
Nedogre.
Yeah.
Datesen chick Galva Champa gi de la Galva Champa utrine tenne da nang pe chö te la connection da chick chagere sungen do kan sungen.
Yes.
So
Penna.
one of those higher levels of existence is named Tushita. It's the name of this level of godlike existence. The Sanskrit name for this level of higher existence within a world system. Now, the level named Tushita has two areas, as it were. It may not have much to do with geography, the two areas, rather with the level of calm those living there have achieved. So in the lower level, there are the individuals who in a previous life were able to achieve a calm and peaceful mindset to some extent, are reborn, and for as long as they remain there throughout their lifespan, they remain in that calm and peaceful state of mind. They rest in that state of mind. Then there is the higher level in this level of existence called Tushita, where again individuals who have practiced in a previous life, who have practiced this type of vipassana in a previous life, have achieved a higher level of calm and peacefulness. However, it is still a worldly mindset. It's not a mindset beyond the world, but a higher level of peace and calm than the ones in the previous sub-level have achieved. And they, therefore, because of their higher level, take rebirth in the second part of Tushita, ruled by the Buddha to be Maitreya, and come in contact with him, and are therefore able to connect to the Buddhist type of vipassana practice, which will facilitate the possibility of a greater change as to the worldly mindset, so great that liberation from rebirth in a worldly existence of any type can be achieved.
Pena ta regularly ke gading ne je watin so ke yang shamba je to biare yene ta nangbe ki the tin so ke shamba je tang min da ji yung biare.
The thing is, the ones of the previous group who haven't achieved that higher level, they still meet with the Buddha to be Maitreya and so on, but because of their lower level of development, they do not perceive Maitreya the same way as those who have achieved a higher level and can therefore not benefit from his instructions in the same way, namely the possibility of achieving liberation from rebirth in a worldly existence altogether. So it's not a matter of a geographical division between these two groups. It's more, or it is about a division due to two different levels of a calm and peaceful state of mind, one higher than the other.
Page shuna ko devi kton. Kama pa walking street le pe degi na. Me ma dege ta posachin ro do samsam rabachi ma to chora ke yung ma ro. Ngaran so ge ta karma pa re se dever loj le.
Now the following example will perhaps make it easy to illustrate what is meant here. Now, if His Holiness, the Karmapa, Thaye Dorje, were to take a walk in the pedestrian area of the streets of the city of Vienna, regular people might note that this person whom they just passed is dressed in a religious garb. They might even recognize the robes of a Tibetan Buddhist person. They might recognize his garb as the outfit of a Tibetan Buddhist person, but that's it. Whereas a follower of the Kagyu school, meeting with the Karmapa in the pedestrian area, would react completely different. He would realize that I'm now meeting with this extraordinary person and be filled with devotion and whatnot. So the circumstances of the two groups in Tushita, it's a bit like that. Some notice who Maitreya truly is and some don't. And whether they do notice who he is or he isn't hinges upon their spiritual development, whether they are able to see that this person is extraordinary or not. So the godlike existences that have been described till now are part of the so-called desire realm. Any world system is primarily divided into three levels. Then you have the two higher realms, the realm of form and the realm of no form, where the level of samadhi, or the levels of the various samadhis, become higher the higher up you go. However, these mindsets that have been described in brief, some being levels of shamatha meditation and some being levels of vipassana meditation. The ones described till now today are all categorized as worldly types of samadhis, worldly types of meditation. But that doesn't mean that these different meditation states are of no use, as it were. These are extraordinary states that have been achieved, extraordinary and virtuous states achieved in consequence of the efforts of the practitioners. And many qualities appear because of them or result from them, such as foreknowledge, such as a capacity to work miracles and the like. And in many of these higher existences, the individuals who rest in those meditation states, their lifespans are exceedingly long, may be made up to last for hundreds of thousands of years, throughout which the individual rests in those states. So according to the Buddhist Tantras, those are individuals who have achieved various siddhis, attainments, such as within the desire realm, there are individuals who have attained the capacity to make, in consequence of the samadhi achieved, to make the lifespan last for a very, very long period of time. And the same applies to, for example, the realm of form, the one above the desire realm. So they are referred to as knowledge holders residing in the realm of form, or knowledge holders residing in the realm of form, for example. So their knowledge, as it were, is at a much higher level than the knowledge of a regular person in the human realm.
Tene jiktin debeting zintala.
Jiktin debeting in.
Yeah. Then
there is vipassana beyond the world. And here you have again a number of categories. The first listed in the text is the contemplation of the noble truths and their attributes in the Shravaka tradition and in the Pratyeka Buddha tradition.
Taganashinge Tekshin Geluk Yotsini Tepekap Geluk.
Just a second. Then there is Mahayana Buddhism and its branch, named the vehicle which sets forth the characteristics which cause the attaining of liberation. Did you?
Di luksu. Tene teaching ma luksu.
And then there is the Mantrayana or the Buddhist Tantras, the second of the two basic divisions in Mahayana Buddhism. Chikti, Tongni, Chikti, Deva, är det gott?
Jere, det är inget annat sjunga.
Lasso?
Det nyeran soge, så tingen som mikpata masona, pakung mikpata masona, dempa ye, la migne. Now, in the
Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha traditions, the meditation as to Vipassana practice focuses primarily on the Four Noble Truths and their 16 attributes.
Hola so. Tene tate denji meta churu korte nge ngama shuyo samkodo.
And Khenpo Rinpoche has during previous courses explained this contemplation or this format for Buddhist Vipassana meditation in previous courses.
Ta teaching Jutsini tape kablas zote ta zog pongbong atoni to tawa tang tene zulden tamje chimbe she part the sangma ngoran yin tongbala te ten pap ten drive toni ki tawa ti yila sheba res.
Then you have the vehicle which sets forth the characteristics which cause the attaining of liberation from worldly existences. And here primary focuses in the context of Vipassana meditation is the emptiness of the 5 skandhas, the 5 psychophysical constituents, as well as the emptiness of all phenomena, not just the 5 skandhas, starting with physical form up to and through the omniscience of a Buddha, the fact that all things are by nature empty of a real reality.
That's not doji tape kabla. Don't be number some maimpa. Dewa salg number 10 things in the Gampuyo.
Then there are the Buddhist Tantras, the Mantrayana, where emptiness alone isn't focused upon, it is coupled with, as it were, so-called enlightening knowledge, which makes 4 states of what one may call absolute well-being.
That regi sim pana nyarang getting and zing Tony the Tavi thing and zing Dewa to a certain old Tavi thing and zing the zoke Chirtan Nyamu Sabion Tonchepa Pongtubu.
Now, by way of these focuses, the ones that were listed, the Four Noble Truths and their attributes, as well as emptiness and enlightening knowledge, these are stable meditation states or samadhis that not only achieve a calm and peaceful mindset, but also liberate rather practitioners from the worldly mindset.
Tindegi tingen singde damne tarshim baten zoki jiktin len deba sedu tingen sing tesor tenne korwal tartu biyore song.
And the point made here is that these samadhis make for liberation from any type of rebirth in a worldly existence. So these are otherworldly samadhis. And these mindsets who have achieved those samadhis are endowed with innumerable good qualities.
다이 공도 땀 받던 졸라 직된 빼땡은 전 세고야데 된소 탈신킹이 메텐소 감성 그나네 다 제와니 고고요.
Now, in terms of the previous category, the worldly samadhis, as it were, there the effect is rebirth within the world in one or another level of existence of the world. So those samadhis do not result in otherworldly states.
제자 감숨근하네 제와 약슈에든 좀 인터뷰도 하고
By way of them, though, practitioners are able to take rebirths of very good circumstances, as was explained earlier.
라소 드네 원나스 직딘은 데베팅은즈나 예와 숨 다동시에도가 걸어갈 타 때에 직발이샤 이내 예와 숨 쉐고에 가르레스나
Kai vasu?
예랑 기팅은징
Jikten ledepa.
Yeah.
So one may then wonder why we have a threefold categorization in terms of various focuses and ways of practice in the context of the group of otherworldly samadhis.
대 예와 숨 쉐고에 지단 걸어갈 타리에 숨가 타르게 돼.
Well, in general, all three samadhis do result in liberation from rebirth in a worldly existence.
옛나야.
However,
예랑게 데브 톱슨베 공사티 주 두규라 다동 시드 그 ഭാಷಾ 하대요.
there is a variation in terms of the mindset achieved. If we take the final mindset achieved in consequence of having focused on the Four Noble Truths and their attributes in the tradition of either the Shravakas or the Pratyeka Buddhas, here liberation from rebirth in the world is achieved, but the mindset is not yet fully enlightened. There remains traces of cognitive obscurations in those mindsets.
페나타 탐제친 베이시스넨다 산제지 공부스넨다 틱죽거나 시드 차신 차와양 봉고고요.
Whereas in terms of Buddha, the enlightened state, not just liberation from samsara and the mindset of that level. It is the case that the mindset has been freed of all types of obscuration. No, not even the slightest trace of an obscuration is at hand.
다 시집게 박사도 뽕에 체도 람시만인데 송트.
So the purpose of the two subdivisions of Mahayana Buddhism is to remove the last traces or the remaining traces of cognitive obscuration.
대인도 시집게 박사도 제바 뽕고자 람시만이도 송하래라.
So, by way of these two subdivisions, even the most subtle predispositions in terms of cognitive obscuration are removed.
다 remove 제라 pen 람시만이 될래야 제발 용고요.
However, there is a difference in terms of how this is attained in terms of the two subdivisions.
단들아 제발때 개발소 송수민다고 먹고도 얘네양 지당기 찬시나.
Buddhist masters of old take. There are some variations in terms of how they explain this. However, in general, it's to be understood as follows.
가르에서는 뉴바치 송시라요. 벤나
in general, the main cause for one of the two being seen as superior to the other is that the capacity of the second subdivision, the capacity of the methods in the second subdivision are said to be the highest. So those methods are more efficient than the methods of the first of these two subdivisions.
벤나 돈에 송배 람테 지부겔 페바이나.
If one follows just the Sutrayana, that is to say, the first of these two subdivisions,
때 온고 용랍지 임바 온도 동나 냠는 신긴데 갈바투메 숨라 조인사.
even the practitioner of the highest capacity would, in order to attain the goal, namely Buddha, the enlightened state, have to use the methods of the Sutrayana throughout three great eons. So time-wise, it's a longer path. Whereas a practitioner of the Tantrayana, the second subdivision, would be able, provided he has that type of capacity that is required, to attain Buddha, the enlightened state, even within a single lifetime.
But
that's for those of the highest capacity within this group. those of the lower capacity within this group, the second group, provided they practice according to the principles of the Tantrayana, uphold Samaya and the like, it is possible to attain Buddha, the enlightened state, within 16 lifetimes. Now, if a practitioner of this group fails to do so, namely to attain Buddha, the enlightened state, within 16 lifetimes, it is simply because this practitioner has not upheld the principles of his path. He has failed in this regard. Therefore, this practitioner would have failed in keeping his samaya pure. There would be damage or having broken one or many of the samayas, the commitments. And therefore, this practitioner will, for a lifetime, take rebirth in a hellish existence, because that's the effect of failing to uphold the samaya.
Legi trodde Josona Karchagre, said you?
Legi trodde Josona Karchagre.
Nyalve Nangla Jene, Tamsing Yambe, Ditip Trote, the Tomanda with the Josona, then a Karchagre, Sena.
So the next question would be, well, let's say there is a practitioner who, because of having failed upholding samaya, takes rebirth in a hellish existence. What happens once the karma for remaining there, because of having failed to uphold samaya, comes to an end? What happens then? Well, yes. Provided this individual hasn't engaged in misguided aspirations while on the path, provided that hasn't happened, then the individual in question would take rebirth again as a human being and meet with the teachings of the Tantrayana and be able to continue on that path. However, if this individual, in addition to not having upheld the commitments of the Tantrayana, if the individual has also cultivated misguided aspirations, then a very unfortunate rebirth will happen. Examples would be if the rebirth is within the world of humans, an evil person with great power, such as Mao Zedong or Vladimir Putin, where the misguided aspirations approach continues, making for a very bad future ahead. So that's why a true practitioner of the Tantrayana needs to be a person who has no concern whatsoever for the affairs of the world. This is very important, because det gick den där kämpa in till det där Mellan loppar regler.
Yeah,
Because if your drive to do things is attachment for this and that, you're on a path of misguided aspirations. Your aspiration is to get what you want by way of non-virtuous means. You're a misguided person. So if you practice the Tantrayana, still engaging in the affairs of the world, you're not heading for a very bright future. You have to correct yourself in terms of the mind, your mindset and its aspirations.
The Doji take the Lambi Yamin Jinkin, one Yamin Nam do, said the La Ravada Shira, Gate, Mashuraj Gore Mato, Shincholo and Robin Yangashira,
there is a great risk that individuals who practice the Tantrayana haven't, to the necessary extent, divorced their mindset from worldly concerns. They very much run the risk of continuing on a path of misguided aspirations instead of enlightening aspirations. And they are heading for a not good future at all. It's important to get this point.
But Doji take the lumps in the Sapalayang that some to and out your like Yangan and some to and out your.
Now, the Vajrayana is an exceedingly profound approach with great potential. However, it takes that the practitioner understands how it works in order to avoid those mistakes and failures.
Last, then, Jiktin Peggy, Thinking Shilag number drinking the Yinandra, Nyarang thinking Yinandra, something Ujisem.
Danga Pura, Karasum so the Sempura, Tumpachasum, Javuchasum.
That Trasachus.
Marikasum Songa.
Javus and a Pamja Kundu. Titaniating a better zoom the plan. Parasite. That Naranke, yes. But now, Jigdin betting and sing.
Now, the worldly samadhis explained,
Drukin Tenzoke,
and those who practice those worldly samadhis
Shinege, Muji something, Nepal Drukiot,
would be able to achieve the highest level of shamatha meditation.
Tagana Shinge,
Det handlar alltså det rakton tror jag.
Lachtonte Drugur in Jigdin Belachtonte.
And with that as their basis, they continue to the worldly vipassana practices.
Tagana Shinge, Nyaranke, Laton Dunkin Tikayang.
Then you have those practitioners of the Shravaka tradition and the Pratyeka Buddha tradition, where the majority would be able to again achieve the highest level of shamatha meditation, and with that as their basis, when point made is, in terms of going back to achieving the highest level of shamatha meditation, point made in the context of the traditions just listed, is that vipassana success, as it were, or progress in terms of vipassana meditation wouldn't be possible otherwise. If you don't have the basis, of highest level of shamatha meditation. You can't make progress in terms of vipassana meditation. Now, if we go back to the worldly types of vipassana practice, then the goal is to attain rebirth in a godlike existence, either within the desire realm or in the realm of form or the realm of no form. And without the highest level of shamatha meditation, that's simply not possible. And the same applies to the Shravaka tradition and the Pratyeka Buddha tradition. Without the same basis, achieving vipassana meditation in terms of the levels they strive to achieve wouldn't be possible without the same basis. Then you have Mahayana Buddhism and its two subdivisions. Here, the basis for vipassana meditation is one-pointed, the level of one-pointedness within the various levels of shamatha meditation, which isn't the highest. But because the methods of the two subdivisions in Mahayana Buddhism are more profound, that level is sufficient for or as a basis for vipassana meditation. So that's all for today.
Kiki